It was a dark and stormy night, and I was driving down a deserted road, my headlights casting eerie shadows on the trees. The GPS led me down a narrow, winding path, and I felt a growing sense of unease. Suddenly, the car sputtered and died. As I got out to investigate, I noticed a figure standing in the distance, illuminated by the moon. It was a woman in a long white dress, her face deathly pale. She began walking towards me, her eyes fixed on mine with an unnerving intensity. I tried to run, but my legs felt heavy, as if rooted to the spot. She drew closer, her presence suffocating. I could feel her icy breath on my skin, and her voice whispered in my ear, "You shouldn't have come here. You shouldn't have come." Suddenly, she vanished into thin air. I was left standing alone, my heart racing. But then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see the woman's face inches from mine, her eyes black as coal. She whispered, "You'll never leave this place. You'll never leave." And then everything went black. When I came to, I was back in my car, the engine purring smoothly. The GPS screen read, "Destination reached." The wind was howling and the waves were crashing against the hulai. I was sailing solo on my small boat, the Maverick. Suddenly I heard a faint cry for help. I scanned the horizon, but all I saw was darkness. The cry came again, louder this time. I followed the sound and soon saw a figure clinging to a piece of wreckage. I pulled them aboard and they collapsed onto the deck. As I tended to them, I realized it was a woman. She was shivering and her eyes were wide with fear. She whispered, "Don't let it get me. Don't let it get me." I asked her what she meant, but she just shook her head. I tried to reassure her, but she kept glancing over the side of the boat, as if something was lurking in the water. Suddenly she screamed and pointed into the darkness. I followed her gaze, but saw nothing. And then I heard it. A low, menacing voice whispering my name. "Come closer, come closer." I tried to ignore it, but the voice grew louder, more insistent. The woman grabbed my arm, her eyes wild with terror. "It's got me. It's got me." And then, she was pulled over the side of the boat, into the darkness. I tried to grab her, but she was gone. The voice laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "You're next. You're next." I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or speak. The voice kept whispering, drawing closer and closer, until everything went black. When I came to, I was alone on the boat, drifting in the darkness. The storm had passed, and the sun was rising over the horizon. I knew then that I had to get out of there to escape the voice in the night. I sailed away from that place, never looking back. But I know the voice is still out there, waiting for its next victim. I'd always been drawn to the old mansion on the hill with its boarded-up windows and eerie silence. As a journalist, I was determined to uncover its secrets. Finally, I got permission to explore the long-abandoned house. As I stepped inside, a chill ran down my spine. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and cobwebs clung to the chandeliers. I began to explore, my footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Suddenly, I stumbled upon a room with a single boarded-up window. The wooden planks seemed to be nailed shut with an urgency, as if to keep something out or in. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I approached the window. As I examined the boards, I noticed something strange. A small, rusty nail protruding from the wood, pointing inward. It was as if someone had tried to escape, but was trapped. I felt a surge of curiosity and began to pry off the boards. With each plank I removed, the silence grew thicker, heavier, and then I saw it. A figure slumped against the window, its face twisted in a silent scream. I tried to run, but my feet felt rooted to the spot. As I gazed upon the figure, I realized that I had uncovered a dark secret, a tragedy that had been hidden for decades. And in that moment, I knew that I would never be able to escape the horrors that lurked within those walls. I was driving home from a long day of work, my mind preoccupied with the tasks I had yet to complete. As I rounded a sharp bend, I saw it. A strange, glowing creature unlike anything I'd ever seen before. was moving quickly, darting across the road, and I swerved to avoid it. But as I looked in my rearview mirror, I saw it again, its eyes fixed on me with an unblinking stare. I sped up, my heart racing, but the creature kept pace with me, its glow growing brighter and brighter. I could feel its presence, a malevolent force that seemed to be drawing me in, and then suddenly it vanished. I pulled over, my breath coming in ragged gasps, and tried to calm down. But as I looked around, I realized that I was not alone. There was something else out there, something that seemed to be watching me. I could feel its eyes on me, boring into my skin like cold steel. I got out of my car and approached the edge of the woods, my senses on high alert. And then I saw it, a strange, twisted creature, its body unlike anything I had ever seen before. It was as if it had been born from the very darkness itself, and it seemed to be waiting for me. Its eyes were black as coal, and they seemed to suck the light out of the air. Its skin was a mass of writhing, pulsing tendrils, like snakes slithering across its body. And its mouth was a twisted, cruel grin, full of razor-sharp teeth. I tried to run, but my feet felt heavy, as if rooted to the spot. And then I heard it, a low, menacing growl, a sound that seemed to come from all around me. The creature began to move towards me, its eyes fixed on me with an unblinking stare. I tried to scream, but my voice was frozen in my throat. I tried to raise my hands, but they felt like lead weights, unable to move. And then everything went black. When I came to, I was lying in a hospital bed, my head throbbing with pain. The doctors told me that I had been in an accident, that my car had skidded off the road and crashed into a tree. But I knew the truth, that I had seen something that night, something that was not of this world. And as I lay there, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still out there waiting for me, its eyes fixed on me with an unblinking stare. I knew that I had to tell someone, to warn them of the danger that lurked in the darkness. But who would believe me? Who would believe that I had seen a creature from the very depths of hell? I lay there, trapped in my own private nightmare, knowing that I would never be able to escape the horror of that night. The creature was still out there waiting for me, and I knew that I would never be able to shake off its unblinking stare. As I walked through the deserted streets, I stumbled upon a house that seemed to be waiting for me. Its windows were boarded up, its door hanging crookedly on its hinges, like a gaping mouth ready to devour me whole. But it was the sign that caught my attention. Spook House, scrawled in red letters like a warning to stay away. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I approached the door. Something about the house seemed to be drawing me in, despite the sense of unease that settled in my stomach like a cold stone. I pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside, the sound echoing through the empty halls like a death knell. The air inside was thick and heavy, like a physical presence that pressed against my skin, making it hard to breathe. I could feel eyes watching me, boring into my skin like cold steel. But every time I turned to look, there was no one there. I began to explore the house, my footsteps echoing off the walls like a death march. Every room was empty, except for a single chair sitting in the center of each one, like a throne waiting for its occupant. It was as if someone had been sitting there waiting for me, and had just gotten up and left, leaving behind only the faint scent of decay and corruption. I felt a growing sense of unease, like I was being led deeper into the house for some unknown purpose, like a lamb to the slaughter. And then I heard it. A low, menacing chuckle, like someone was laughing at me from the shadows, enjoying my fear and discomfort. I tried to run, but my feet felt heavy, as if rooted to the spot, like I was trapped in some kind of twisted nightmare. The laughter grew louder, more intense, until I felt like I was drowning in it, suffocating under the weight of my own fear. Suddenly everything went black, like the lights had been switched off, plunging me into darkness and despair. When I came to, I was lying outside the house, my head throbbing with pain, like I had been hit by a hammer. The sign was still there, but it had changed. Spook House was now Spook House in bold, blood-red letters, like a warning to never come back. I knew then that I had been warned, and I never went near that house again. Never dared to tempt fate by crossing its threshold. But the memory of that place stayed with me, haunting my dreams, reminding me of the horrors that lurked in the shadows, waiting to pounce. As I stepped out of my car and onto the crumbling driveway, I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine. The old mansion loomed before me, its turrets and spires reaching towards the stormy sky like skeletal fingers. I'd heard whispers about this place, how it was haunted by the ghost of a beautiful bride. I didn't believe it, of course. I'm a skeptic, a seeker of truth and reason, but there was something about this place that drew me in, something that made me want to uncover its secrets. I pushed open the creaky front door and stepped inside, my flashlight casting eerie shadows on the walls, and I could feel the weight of history bearing down on me. I explored deeper, my heart racing with every creak and groan of the old wooden floorboards. It was as if time had stood still within these walls. As I made my way through the dusty halls, I stumbled upon a grand ballroom, its chandelier swaying ominously in the wind. The walls were adorned with faded portraits, their subjects' eyes seeming to follow me as I moved. And that's when I saw her, the spectral bride. Her ethereal form glided across the room, her wedding dress shimmering like moonlight. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a deep sense of sorrow and longing. She beckoned me to follow her, and I did, my heart pounding in my chest. She led me to a hidden chamber where a single candle flickered, casting an eerie glow. In the center of the room, a wedding portrait hung depicting the bride and her groom in happier times. The bride's ghostly form began to whisper a haunting tale of love, loss, and tragedy. Her voice was barely audible, but I hung on every word. As I listened, entranced, the storm raging outside seemed to intensify, the wind and thunder mirroring the turmoil in my own heart. The bride's spirit began to fade, her whispers growing fainter until she vanished into thin air. I stood there for a moment, my mind reeling with the secrets I'd uncovered. The spectral bride's story lingered within me, a haunting reminder of the power of love and the tragedy that can befall us all. I explored the mansion further, uncovering more secrets and stories of the past. I found a dusty diary belonging to the bride, detailing her joy and sorrow. I discovered a hidden garden, overgrown with weeds, where the bride and her groom had once strolled hand in hand. And I found a small, forgotten chapel where the bride had prayed for her lost love. As I delved deeper into the mysteries of the mansion, I began to realize that the spectral bride's story was just one of many. The mansion was a repository of secrets, a keeper of tales that spanned generations. And I, a curious skeptic, had uncovered just a small part of its mysteries. I spent hours exploring the mansion, uncovering secrets and stories that had been hidden for decades. I found a room filled with old letters tied with a faded ribbon. I discovered a hidden laboratory, where the groom had conducted experiments in his quest for knowledge. And I found a small, ornate box adorned with strange symbols and markings. Finally, as the storm subsided and the sun began to set, I knew it was time to leave. I bid farewell to the spectral bride and the mansion, knowing that I'd never forget the secrets I'd uncovered. And as I drove away from the crumbling mansion, I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden, waiting to be discovered. The experience had left me with more questions than answers. Who was the spectral bride, and what was her story? What secrets lay hidden within the mansion's walls, and what other mysteries awaited discovery? I knew that I'd never forget the spectral bride and the secrets she had shared with me. And I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden, waiting to be uncovered.